What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the podcast version of our Risers and Shiners series. And today, as always, you're joined by your lovely and talented host, Drake Mann. And I'm joined by Milton Dauber and Austin Farmer. Say hi, guys.
What's up?
All right. Well, that was a little awkward, but okay. Well then. And this episode, fellas, we're talking about some really, really good talent here. Like really good. We're talking about the Seattle Mariners. And guys, what do we think about this system? I already said my piece, so
I think they have a very good system. I think you have really big names at the top of the top five prospects are pretty big name guys most people know of, but God, they have some risers and some guys maybe low on the list, probably closer to like the 10 to 15 range that are going to be really good and high name prospects in the next 2 years.
Yeah, they have a lot of strong hitters and a lot of really good pitching as well. And it's going to be exciting for the next couple of seasons, seeing a lot of these guys develop and come up.
What's always funny is half these guys that they got were either drafts or they got them via trade for an underwhelming player. So the Mariners, Jerry Dipoto loves to fleece, as they like to say. So yeah, that's that. Mariners, the Mariners.
Yeah, I will say congrats to Julio Rodriguez and all the success that he's starting to have in the big leagues. I know he got off to a slow start, but he is really starting to crush it. At the time of recording, he went like 4-for-4 with 2 bombs last night.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say that he was off to a slow start, because I think some in like those months, like April, he had like 30 strikeouts, but half of them were looking. And if you look on Baseball Savant, of the 16 strikeouts he had looking, like 15 of them were actual balls. To make a note, the umpiring this year, I think we can all agree, writ large in the league, has been atrocious, and he was one of the guys affected to that. And, the Mariners probably said to him, hey, don't be afraid to down a bit, because you can still barrel up those balls and drive them, that maybe are 2-3 inches off the plate. And he's been doing that, and he's been raking ever since May started.
And that is an excellent point.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. But also, just I want to mention one more thing about Julio. The Mariners manager, Scott Service, actually went on to say, like, basically, Julio Rodriguez is getting screwed by the umpires. So just that trust and that bond that Service has with Julio just shows how much of a player he's going to be with the Mariners and how untouchable he is for any other team that would even be willing to trade anything for him. So, I mean, it's the Mariners. Julio Rodriguez, yeah, Mariners.
And
that bond and trust.
Can we talk about the development of his speed? Because I heard that over spring training, he ran like a 6'11", 60. And prior to spring training, I had him clocked at like above average on his speed.
Yeah, so, most people did not have him more than maybe like a 55 ranking for his speed. But fun fact, he is leading the majors in steals at this point when we are recording with 10. He's blown a lot of people away with how much his speed has improved.
Yeah, and it's playing in center too.
Oh yeah, big time.
But anyways, that's a good point. Enough geeking out over the former number 1 prospect.
So now we're going to move on to the new number 1 prospect for us, and it is shortstop. And everyone knows this guy just mainly because of his name, and we're really talking about MiLB Marte here. And Marte to me is just another Mariners signee that's just excelling in the role that they have really caved for him. I think that he's an incredible, MiLB Marte is continuing the lineage of high-level prospects. And again, this is just another young player who's still fairly raw, but his tools are loud and they speak a lot of volume. I think that he has good power potential, but I think that bat is going to be really carrying him to the majors at some point, or carrying him to the majors going forward. So yeah, he defense is a little sketchy, but on the other end, his offense is really making up for it.
Yeah, I mean, they seem to be giving him a pretty long leash defensively. Like, they're continuing to play him at shortstop this year. he does have great instincts and athleticism, but let's be honest here, his consistency is bad. It is bad. The guy made 30 errors in only 99 games last year between A and high A, which is a 92% fielding percentage. Now, as we all know, those numbers can be a bit convoluted because, he could be going to his left or right and be making these diving plays that no one else would make. And then he, let's say, bobbles it or then makes a short hop throw and then gets credited for the error. But just the fact that he's making the stop that no one else would make, he kind of gets screwed over for a bit. But he does need to work on his consistency. And that's the one thing that's really kind of holding him back a little bit right
now. That's a good point, Milton. And what is kind of weird also is that he is also struggling a little bit this year. And like I'm saying about his hit tool, he is 20 in high A, but he is only hitting 246 this year so far in 114 at bats with a 346 on base. So while the on base still is pretty good, you do want to see him at least start to show off his tools a little bit more, if that's like the best words to use there.
Yeah, I understand, but here's a point I just want to make real quick. Maybe we have become so caught up in this idea that these high-level guys need to get to the majors by 22, 23, at the latest, kind of days of old where guys would get up at, in the 50s and 60s, guys would get up at 19, 20. But look at guys like Taylor Ward. He's a former first-round draft pick, and now he's finally starting to play like he should in his late 20s. We need to be more realistic and understand that these guys may take some time. They may not get up to majors until 24, and they may not hit the peak until, play at the level they're supposed to until 26, but they eventually will get there.
I do agree with that quite a bit, but then you have guys that there are things as when a guy has a breakout year, much like, well, I hate to say this, but Tyler O'Neill last year. This year he looks different than he did last year. Nick Plummer, there's another one where he really didn't develop till last year, and then everyone's like all hyped about him, but he's still 25, 26, and he's just not coming up, and I think he is struggling this year. So I do think that there is an outlier to that.
Yeah, and most players don't really hit their prime anyway, or most players' primes anyway aren't until about like 27 to about 32. So unless they have like multiple bad seasons in a row, or they're just really showing regression, I'm all for taking the time and not rushing players and letting them develop into their own player. So
yeah, very good point. So number 2 on our list is yet another guy, and Milton, we were talking about him just a little bit before we even had this. And number 2 on this list is actually George Kirby. And, he did make his major league debut. And right now he's doing pretty well in 10 innings with a .90 ERA and 8 Ks. But I just feel like his control is something, or his stuff mixed with control is just something that Mariners fans would just dream on. And especially forming with what they have now with Logan Gilbert and even number 3 on our list, which I'm kind of foreshadowing, but Emerson Hancock. But George Kirby might be the best out of the 3 at some point.
Oh,
you guys 100%?
100% agree with you, because as you mentioned, the control and command is just way, way advanced than most pitching prospects in the game, because the way we evaluate guys today, we are very hyper focused on stuff, whether the life to the fastball and the total break to the break-in stuff, where some of these guys are okay with giving up a couple walks, but they play to a high swing and miss, high whiff rates based on stuff that is just nasty. And then you have Kirby, who his secondaries are all right, but his ability to put the ball where he wants it, especially with his fastball, it's kind of unprecedented and stands out among this group of current pitching prospects that we have in 2022.
Yeah, with Kirby, like I always say, like especially with the fastball, when you can spot that on a dime, especially on the inner half, they can already eliminate, he's not going to miss with his fastball. And that's exactly what George Kirby is. And I just feel like fans don't really, I agree with you a lot on there's too much focus on the stuff and not enough with the command and control. Because I would rather take a guy in a draft that has a lot better command than stuff, much like when George Kirby was available and the Mariners took him right before the Cardinals took Zach Thompson. So that's that. I was a little upset that day, but Zach Thompson's all right, but George Kirby's George Kirby. So but it'll be interesting to see him develop.
Well, and give him some credit. He's averaging 96 on his fastball right now,
Yeah.
so it's not so slow. He still has some umph to that pitch.
Yeah, exactly. All right, now number 3, I just foreshadowed it on our list, is Emerson Hancock. And out of the 2020 draft, when I was doing my mock, I was trying to fit him into the top 3, which I think I did. But he did drop, which was very surprising to me, out of Georgia. And he was one of the best pitching prospects in that draft. But to me, he reminds me, this is going to be a very weird comp for you guys, but Emerson Hancock reminds me a lot of Cal Quantrill, where the stuff is there. The control can be iffy at times, but that's pretty good. But there's just something about him where it's very, you want to see a little bit more from Hancock. But I do really like Hancock, and I think that he's the big 3 of the Mariners is pretty good going forward. Number 4 on this list, and Austin, I saw that I see that you actually did the report on him, but 2021 draft pick Harry Ford. Austin, take it away.
Yeah, I really like Harry Ford. He brings both a mix of power and athleticism at the catching position, and he also has a really solid glove behind the plate and a really strong arm. He's had pretty high pop times in drills. I'm still trying to get him in game. It is kind of disappointing because every game that I've watched of Modesto this year, he's been a DH, so I still have not seen him behind the plate this year. But that being said, he's not, his average really isn't too high, but he's getting on base at a very high rate this season. He knows how to work the count. He controls the zone, and he has a plan and an approach at the plate. And he does have 30 strikeouts, but a lot of those calls have been close. And yeah, he's only 19 years old, and yeah, he's got a really advanced approach for his plate. And like I said earlier, he's got a plan, and he really did, his average really wasn't where at least I thought it should be at, but it is starting to climb a little bit, and he did spend a little bit of time hurt, but he is starting to get more playing time behind the plate now. And again, to his arm, he's thrown out 31% of base stealers. So unfortunately, I haven't seen that yet, but that is a really strong number, especially for a 19-year-old. So he brings both the mix of a really strong bat. Even if he's not going to hit for a very high average, he's going to get on base at a high rate. He's going to bring the power production, and he's going to bring the athleticism behind the plate as well. And there's a lot to like about Harry Ford.
Yeah, and I think a lot of evaluators and injuries in the industry have said that if he doesn't necessarily work out behind the plate, you could put him in the outfield. He is uber athletic. And I've even heard some people say second base. The bat really will be the deciding factor for him, but I think he can move around the diamond pretty dang easily.
Yeah, and I mean, right now I really do like his prospect status as a catcher, but yeah, like you said, he is really athletic. So again, yeah, if he doesn't work out behind the plate, there's a number of options to do with him.
Yeah, see, I just want to put in something here with Harry Ford. I remember I saw him a little bit at Complex League, as both of you know. And Harry Ford, for me, I saw his first professional home run, and that thing was absolutely demolished. So I'm actually really high on the bat, and I really think if he does move around, like, that's a very valuable player for the Mariners going forward.
Yeah, he hits the ball hard, and yeah, kind of foreshadowing to a later prospect. It's kind of like Melcar Perez in that he makes a lot of consistent hard contact.
Yeah, that's a good point. And so now we're going to move on. Number 5 on our list is actually a fairly interesting pick for me, because he rose a lot last year, from being traded by the Padres to the Mariners for Taylor Williams. Matt Brash has really cemented himself as not only a nasty pitcher, but a good pitcher for the Mariners. And Patrick Joyce did write the scouting report He unfortunately could not be here tonight, but let's talk about Matt Brash.
Yeah, so Brash, my God, the guy is like content for pitching ninja every single time he steps on the mound. He has a fastball that's borderline 70 grade. That obviously is his best pitch. He's got a lot of life to it, and he does in the mid to upper 90s. But I think there's a really good argument that he also has a plus pitch in his slove. I think he calls it a knuckle curve, but it's more of a slove. That thing has true frisbee bite to it. It is late and it's sharp and it's a really good pitch. Problem is, it doesn't throw for strikes. It's a swing and miss purely at this stage. But like Drake and Austin have alluded to, he was kind of a pop-up guy last year in the fact that, so he was a 2019 fourth-round pick out of Niagara University by the Padres. He didn't pitch that much after he was drafted in 2019. Then obviously 2020 happened when he was sent over to the Mariners. And then last year, between high A and double A, he just exploded and really blasted on the scene with a 2.31 ERA and 142 strikeouts and only 97 innings pitched. With that said, though, he did walk 48 batters. And in his recent MLB debut, he did struggle where he walked 17 batters in 20 innings, which is really bad. So, like we have mentioned in previous episodes, he's one of those guys where the command isn't there, but these, in terms of the stuff, it's there. He has got the break on his breaking balls, and he's got the life to his fastball. But in order for him to be successful, especially at the major league level, he's got to find out, at least be able to throw strikes a little bit of the time, and he's not really doing that right now.
That's really interesting with Brash. I read something, a little excerpt from an article, and it was about the Padres coaching development. And that's why a lot of people are thinking that they traded Brash, was that the coaching really wasn't up to par with Brash. Basically, they weren't talking to him as much as they should have. Basically, Brash has been with the Mariners getting a lot more advice, getting a lot more feedback on his pitches, and that's what changed with Brash. And like the Padres didn't do any of that. So that's very interesting that he goes to the Mariners and immediately starts striking out guys at a high rate.
Can we also talk about the fact that Brash only signed for just over 500K? I think that a lot of people do take too much focus into the signing bonus and the draft slot. And I honestly think that it doesn't necessarily matter. And I think that Matt Brash is a testament to that.
Well, it matters in how long you give a guy a leash.
Well,
I know.
I'm just saying that a lot of people that are like, let's say from a fantasy perspective and or, they're just simple outsiders or whatever. I think that they look at all, not all the wrong factors, but I think that they look they factored in too much because 500K is that's not like chump change or anything, but it's also not a whole lot of money considering the quality pitcher that Matt Brash is.
Yeah, he definitely, in terms of where he was drafted, he looks like he may be a huge deal from that draft, but we still need time to be sure because, like I mentioned earlier, the command is all over the place. Stuff's great, but I don't think he knows where the heck it's going half the time.
Yeah, and I'm sure that the Mariners will tweak some of that out, and he'll at least keep up with his command. Yeah, it's not going to be great or anything, but I think it'll at least, I would say probably about 45 command. I
mean, worst case scenario is an elite reliever. That's absolute worst case scenario. So
true that.
I think that's probability. I could definitely see that.
Yeah. So that's basically worst case scenario with Brash, but that is our top five for the Mariners. We got MiLB Marte at 1, George Kirby at 2, Emerson Hancock at 3, Harry Ford at 4, and Matt Brash at 5. And now we get to the fun part of this list with our risers. And our first riser is a guy that I spent so much time trying to get film on at the Arizona Complex League, but he was at the backfields working on becoming a switch hitter, which is actually pretty interesting. But Jonathan Clase is one of our first risers, and this is a guy that really sticks out just from watching video. I know it's much different as we've discussed before between the three of us, but just watching video, there's some power potential there. He's a very fun and exciting guy player to watch. The hit tool is above average, and I think that Class A is going to slowly become a staple in this farm system real soon. So number 2 on our list is Austin. I actually got you to be a fan of this guy as well. But Milcar Perez, as you were alluding to earlier, a guy to me that just has a violent swing, but has one of the best eyes I've seen from a young prospect. Milcar Perez has that. He will have a high on base wherever he goes. I mean, if he barrels the ball up, it's hard contact and it's in the gap somewhere. So Austin, I'll let you finish out of it.
Yeah, Milcar Perez, I definitely heard him first from you. I'll give you all the credit for being a stan, and I'm all on board the Milcar Perez train. His average, again, like Harry Ford, it's not quite where I was expecting, but I have watched a number of Modesto games, and like we were talking about earlier with Julio Rodriguez, honestly, a lot of the minor league umpires are just being atrocious this season. Milcar has had a lot of close calls result in strikes. He has a very selective approach, and it's amazing to see that how selective he is. And he's got a 353 on base percentage. The strikeout total is a bit higher than what it could be at, but again, that's just the minor league umpires. I think that Milcar has a plus bat. I think that he will get a little bit bigger. I don't think that he's going to add too much more to his frame, but I think with that he's going to develop more power, and I can see him hitting 20 plus bombs. So a 280 bat with 20 plus bombs is a very realistic projection for Milcar Perez. He's also a pretty solid third baseman with a really strong arm. I've seen him make really strong throws from third, and the Mariners got a really good one with Milcar Perez, and we'll see how the umpires keep treating him this season. At one point or the other, he's bound to just start racking up the hits. But yeah, I'm really impressed with his plate coverage.
Well, and then there's also a question though: is he being too selective? Because you can see this a lot. Some guys become so obsessed with only hitting their pitch that they let pitches in counts when maybe they're down, 1-2, 0-2. They let hittable pitches go because in the wrong count, they're too dead set on one pitch. And that comes with maturity. He's young. He's going to learn that, hey, I only may get my pitch one time a game. So in the rest of my at-bats, I need to look at, in certain situations, look at smart pitches to hit.
Yeah, and part of it too is he was in the Arizona Complex League last summer, so the quality of pitching is better in Modesto where he's at. So he probably is being over selective, like you mentioned. So I think that as he matures and as he starts getting a better feel for these pitchers, that the hits will start racking up too.
Yeah, Austin, I want to actually talk about one thing here. I don't think that he even touches close to 20 home runs a year. I'll be dead honest with you. I think he has below average power because I think he's more of a doubles and triples hitter, and not even triples, more gap to gap power than over the fence power. That's my opinion, but
See, the reason why I think that he could develop into that, like I said, he might add some more to his frame. Every time that I've seen him hit the ball, it's been loud contact, and I think that. I'm not going to say he's going to start selling out for power, but I think that maybe the Mariners start implementing a little bit of loft in his swing over time, and I think that will lead to some power production.
Yeah, that's interesting. But anyway, I digress. So number 3 on our list, Austin. This is a guy that both you and I we do like him a lot, but after seeing him at Arizona Fall League, he struggled mightily, and we did notice a few flaws, which I will let you discuss. But Zach DeLoach, and Austin, I'll let you go ahead and take over from here.
Yeah, I've always liked Zach DeLoach coming through the prep ranks. He was from the Dallas area, and coming through A&M, his freshman and sophomore seasons, he really could not hit. He found ways to get on base, but he really struggled making consistent contact and hard contact at that. I really liked his athleticism. I really liked his arm. And so I felt that there was something to work with there, but I really didn't know where to place him in the draft. And then 2020 happened and he just caught fire. And unfortunately, the season was cut short, but I think that he hit so productively that the Mariners took a gamble on him in the second round due to the production at the plate that he was starting to show and his athleticism. But yeah, the big thing that I did notice at the AFL that you were mentioning was, yeah, you could really see that he was getting inside his head a lot. Like if he was missing pitches or if things weren't going his way, he was overthinking a ton. And I do think that with time, like maybe with the Mariners sports psychologist, maybe they help him sort out whatever is going on, because Deloach does have so much athleticism. He's got a really nice arm. He I would say he's a projectable bat, but there definitely are question marks now. So hopefully that things work out in his favor, because there is a lot to like about Zach Deloach.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And that, like you were saying, then, or like what I was basically explaining, was that's what we saw. Like I remember that one game that we watched, and he struck out like 3 times, and you could just tell that there was something going on in his head where he just, I don't know if he was just stopped believing in himself or what, but that game he just looked awful.
Yeah, and that's something where I really think that a sports psychologist could come into play, because if you start doing that too much and getting into your own head, you're going to start having fun and you're going to start beating yourself up, and the production, or not, or yeah, the production will start to decline if that happens too much. So I think that there is a lot of potential to be had with Deloach. It just has to be worked out.
All right, so that's very, very interesting. But number 4 on our list is another guy in the system that Jerry Dipoto fleeced from the Blue Jays in a trade for Taijuan Walker. And Alberto Rodriguez has slowly started to show his tools in the system and really blossom with the Mariners. And basically, to me, I've watched video. I think there's some significant power potential there. I think he has above average hit. I think he'll play the outfield just fine with the Mariners. And I do think that going forward, he could be kind of bit of a trade bait, but I do think the Mariners are going to try everything in their power to get him more at bats with them than anything. But yeah, Alberto Rodriguez is a stud, and I think that going forward, he's gonna really shine in this system. Number 5 on this list, Milton. This is your boy, and I know it. So I'll let you and Austin talk about him, because I've watched him at Arizona Complex League. I watched him a lot, and I'm a huge fan of him as well. But number 5 on this list, Edwin Arroyo. Which one of you wants to go first?
I'm going to go first on this one. I am a huge fan of Edwin Arroyo. I got to see him a lot in high school in Florida, playing for Central Point Christian Academy. He is native to Puerto Rico, but he spent his senior year playing high school baseball in Florida. That did help his draft stock a bit, but honestly, I thought he should have been a first-round draft pick. He was a 2021 second-round draft pick by the Mariners, and there's so much to love about this kid. Especially, the biggest thing for me is that his defense it's raw, but it has the potential to be a Gold Glove defense. He has such an incredible and advanced first step. He moves very, very well laterally. He has really good arm strength, and that he has such a great baseball IQ in the field. He makes really good plays on the run, and he can throw from multiple arm slots. Now, he has struggled a little bit defensively to begin his pro career, but I don't think that it's because of skill or anything like that. I think he's just rushing plays, and I think that's something that can easily be fixed with the Mariners coaching staff. And at the plate, he is a little bit more of a contact over power guy, although I do think he grades average to slightly above average in both categories. He's a switch hitter. The left-handed side is much, much better than the right. He will sell out for power a bit on the right-hand side and will swing and miss a bit, but he has such a smooth stroke lefty, and especially from the left-hand side of the plate, he can hit the balls to all gaps. And I think at the very least, he'll be a pretty consistent double hitter and will be able to hit 30-plus doubles in the season and maybe 13 to 15 home runs, but he provides a lot on both sides of the ball, and there's a lot to love about him.
Well, good job, Milton. You just did my entire report for me. Yeah, no, I agree with a lot of what you said. I have noticed, like you mentioned, with his throws, he can be a bit erratic, but it's not going to be anything too, it's nothing that can't be tweaked. I do think that it does, at least from what I've seen, I would say his raw arm strength is probably at a plus plus, but because of the bit of erraticness that he has, he probably has a plus arm for future value. Considering the bat, I do have him at a 50 hit, 45 power. I will agree he's got a lot of doubles potential. He's got more of a line drive, contact oriented swing, but man, it is a beautiful swing. And yeah, you pretty much covered the majority of it, but there's a lot of Mariners fans. Edwin Arroyo is a guy to really get hyped on.
And a really important is that he is 18. He was young for the draft at 17. So he is 18 and he is an A ball right now. So he's very, very young. They're going to take the time with him, especially if the Mariners plan to keep J.P. Crawford at short and hold on to him long term. I could see Edwin Arroyo move over to third or second base. They already have been playing him. I'm sorry, in winter ball this past winter, he played some third and some second. So I could see him move over pretty easily. Also, fun fact about Arroyo, he pitched left-handed at times in high school and would get up to 90-91, which is pretty crazy to think.
And that is really crazy. But I just want to say one thing that I saw with Arroyo, and he went to the opposite field with authority. Like, it wasn't cheap hits when he'd go to the opposite field. And especially when he's a lefty, they can't. I mean, the shift is going to be banned soon, but still, like, he sprays the ball very well for an 18-year-old, a young prospect.
Yeah, I love his bat speed. He's got, like you said, he hits the ball with authority, and it's a quick swing.
Yeah, and one last note about him is that I also love who he is off the field. Like I said, I got to see him probably like 5 to 10 times, probably 5 to 7 times in the spring of 2021, and I remember this quite adamantly. That there was a game where he had a teammate playing second base, and his teammate playing second base was a kid named Charlie Soto, who's a UCF commit from the class of 2023 and a big-time draft prospect for that draft, more as a pitcher. But Soto makes an error, and in between, he goes up to him and he says, in Spanish, "Don't worry about it. It's fine." He puts his arm around the kid, and he lightens the mood. He's always smiling, and he just plays the game with such a great passion that I think it's really going to help him.
So he's got like a Frankie Lindor type personality, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't want to make the comp because the skill levels are a bit different. I don't think he'll be that good, but in that case, in terms of Mr. Smile off the field, 100%.
All right, guys. So we have gone over our top 5 and our risers. Once again, we had Jonathan Cosay at 1. We had Milcar Perez at 2. We got Zach DeLoach at 3, Alberto Rodriguez at 4, and Edwin Arroyo at 5. Now, as always, tradition for these episodes, I'm going to challenge both of y'all. Who is one prospect that we did not mention that is going to rise in this system and be a top 5 to 10 prospect soon?
Juan Pinto.
Yeah, that is a great homage to our very own Caden Schmidt, who probably would have said it just like that of Juan Pinto. And yes, he is 17 years old, so who knows what will happen with Juan Pinto. But again, one more time, Caden Schmidt, give him a hand. Juan Pinto. But yeah, let's just go ahead and Austin, go first.
All right, so my guy is going to be Bryce Miller. He was college teammates with Zach DeLoach over at Texas A&M, so I got to see him a handful of times. I really like his breaking stuff. His fastball did climb to mid-90s at times. I do think that there's some reliever risk with him, but the Mariners are using him as a starter in the farm system, and that's gotten him a promotion to high A this season. He's a little bit on the older side, I would say, at 23, so I would imagine that they are trying to not prolong his development, but he's got 40 strikeouts over 33 and a third innings and a 1.08 ERA. So he's starting off the season on fire, and I can see that if maybe he gets a promotion to Double A by the end of the season and maybe makes his debut sometime next season at 24.
All right, and Milton?
Yeah, so my guy for the Mariners is going to be Levi Stout. He is a little bit on the older end at 24 years old, but he's a little bit of a, I would say, undervalued name in the system. Like, obviously, it's kind of hard to make a name for yourself when you have Brash, Kirby, and Hancock at the top, but Stout has a really good sinking, I'd call it a true sinker, that he has in the low to mid 90s. and he has a changeup that pairs really, really nice with it. It is kind of just drops off and plays to the arm side fade that his sinker has and plays really nice off of it. And he has a slider that is a little bit inconsistent, but it will flash above average from time to time. But the raw stuff is there, and I wouldn't say his command was great, but I wouldn't say it's like horrible either. He did walk 37 and 81 innings last year, but he's off to a much, much better start this year where he only has 8 walks and 36 innings for Double-A Arkansas, and he has 33 strikeouts in those 36 innings. And I'm not sure if he's going, I think his best case scenario is like a 4 or 5 in a rotation, but he could be a really quality arm that not a lot of people are talking about.
See, this might be a rarity where all three of us actually pick pitchers. So for me, I think that my riser that we didn't even talk about is Taylor Dollard, and he was another 2020 or a 2020 fifth round pick. And for me, like Milton, we were talking about George Kirby with his control. That's what Taylor Dollard is to me. He touches 93 miles an hour. He has a massive sink to it. He also has a slider, curveball, and changeup. And right now, I think that he's rising fairly well in this system. As in 6 games so far, 22 innings, he has 23 Ks and a 0.82 ERA in Double-A. So the Mariners have plenty of pitching reinforcements coming soon, especially with all three guys that we just talked about.
Yeah, and one last note I wanted to make about Stout is he will get up to 98, 99, but I think, but when he does that, he'll kind of try and blow it up in the zone. But I think his fastball is a little bit better when he works in the mid 90s and works it down off that changeup. But yeah, Mariners pitching prospects. I don't know if maybe it's just me, but they may have probably the overall best pitching prospects, like the compilation of all the guys, because they may have the best compilation of pitching prospects in all of the MLB.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point there. And with that last note, I think that it is time to end this. Once again, this has been Risers and Shiners with your host, Drake Mann, Milton Dauber, and Austin Farmer. Anything you guys want to plug?
I guess we're going to call it there, Drake.
All right, so this has been Prospects Worldwide. Seattle Mariners fans, get hyped. This system is insane. And, that's what I'm going to end it on. This team is going to be insane in about 2 years. So, yeah, Mariners fans, get hyped and peace.
Peace, everybody.
Staple my balls to the wall.